All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of the Futurist Robot. Today, we have a special episode because we're going to actually have a general discussion about technology, its growth, about creation, about innovation, about generally having a huge conversation about the future trends in technology without any specific focus as such, but to just navigate through how we believe the future is going to unfold. And we have two amazing guests today. I'm really grateful that both of you were able to join. So we have Michael, who is an inventor, and he has one of the most inspiring stories I have ever heard about. And we are also joined by Darren, who is working along with After Cloud, which I believe in our preliminary discussion is one of the most innovative concepts combining software and technology with a need which I personally admit I did not really see before. And yeah, with this amazing, two guests, I'm sure this episode is going to be really interesting. Michael, I guess we can begin. So, what do you think about the terms creation and innovation as such?
I think they're very important. I think it's I think it's really time for a lot of people to know how to move their ideas forward. And we live in a very innovative world today. There's technology everywhere, and I keep running up against people who don't know what to do with their ideas. We all know the sad story of inventors. We all know the sad story of Nikola Tesla and how amazing he was, but how he became not such a great businessman in the end. And I like to fix that, actually. I think, rather than look up to sports heroes, we can look up to inventors. I was saying just a minute ago, where I am from, Boston, there's a gigantic billboard as you drive into Boston. And it's one of those billboards where the words are just there. You don't even know who put it there. Big, bold letters. You know what this sign says? It says the world needs great lawyers. The world needs great lawyers. And I want to go out with some spray paint and spray paint out the word lawyer and replace it with inventor, and replace it with innovators, replace it with the word leaders. I have a lot of friends that are lawyers. Lawyers are important people. We understand that. They protect us also as inventors. But I really would love to have my own sign, because I really believe I'd like to be part of inspiring more and more individuals to actually take that step, that bold step, to move an idea forward. I had the good fortune of actually putting out a social media post when I was switching between jobs that I would be willing to work on someone's invention. I do a lot of 3D printing. I do a lot of design. And this guy contacted me, and he had this idea in his head for 10 years. And he saw my LinkedIn post and he wrote me, and I understood what his idea was right away. And in 10 hours, I had designed it for him. I had 3D printed it for him, and I shipped it to him. And now he's testing this, has filed for patent, and is going on Shark Tank to talk about the invention. And he thanks me all the time because I took a chance on him. He took a chance on me, and we nudged this invention together. And now I'm meeting all sorts of people who are also interested in the same pursuit. You know, an invention doesn't need to necessarily be something that you bring to market. It can be something new and useful. I'm always working on inventions. I just, on my LinkedIn, I have over now 20,000 followers. So look, I designed and 3D printed my own, award, if you will. This is printed out of PLA gold. This is plastic. And this took me only an hour to print. And I like displaying that. So I'm someone who thinks about things, and I go right into doing it. I go right into 3D printing. I go right into design. And every day, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I'm always teaching and advocating people to do the same thing. And I seem to have found a tribe of people who are interested in this story. And actually, now that you mentioned Darren, Darren and I are also on this same journey. He and I met in a very interesting and unusual way. My father passed away when he was 87. I was in the middle of starting a company, and he had helped me. And when he passed away, I thought, I should 3D print a QR code for him and have that point to his legacy website. And I did that. And and then it went viral on social media. Everybody in the world's been following this story. And that's about the time I found Darren. And Darren has a technology that I think is very interesting. The QR code is a great way to connect someone to a place. But what if that place could be an immersive experience? What if you're at the gravesite and you scan this QR code and you have an immersive experience where you can drop letters and notes and oral history? People can read and learn about who my father was. And so as soon as I heard about what Darren was doing, I had to be a part of it. And he let me redirect my QR code. See, my QR code is reprogrammable, so I don't need to recreate it. I just need to repoint it to a new location. And I redirected it to Darren's aftercloud technology, and it's been working great. In fact, I've been adding more to it every day. So legacy is a kind of a dead end. A legacy page is, you don't get to change it. Maybe you can leave a note here and there. But what Darren's done is very innovative. He's building, I think, the on-ramp to this technology to allow people to record timelines, to record oral history, to record videos. In fact, after this video is done, I'm going to post that on the QR code too, so I could share it with everyone else. So that's probably a great time to introduce Darren. I think he's really onto something. I like his company. It's got a cool name and a cool technology, and it's actually working.
That's very kind, Michael, and it's great to be here as well, Chandra. And thank you for inviting us. I'm too a great believer in innovation, and clearly that's what Michael's done. He was way ahead of the curve there with creating a QR code for his dad, and I just found it fascinating. And the fact that it went viral as well kind of brought us together. I think serendipity plays its part in that sense, and yeah, I think what he's doing is fantastic. I think some of the thoughts he has is really advanced, and I think that will aid us as well. I've invited Michael onto our Aftercloud US advisory board, so that when we do get together as a team, as a board, we have really good creative minds, sort of applying to the melting pot. Really, I mentioned earlier on, Chandra, and our work stemmed from lived experience of a family loss. My mother-in-law, and the fact that when she died, a lot of that information had gone with her, and it was a realization that this is a problem that pretty much every family has when someone dies. So what we wanted to do was, rather than look at it retrospectively, is capture the here and now whilst people are living, so that there is a legacy when they die. And I think that's really, really important. Notwithstanding the fact that you can also apply it to, monuments, statues, buildings. We're doing work now locally and across the county where I live in Oxfordshire in the UK, with various councils that want to showcase their assets in a similar way. So it's fascinating. It's a really, really interesting time.
Yeah, the entire idea. So actually, this reminds me of some thing which happened a couple of weeks ago. So I traveled to Paris for the first time, I think 3 weeks ago. And one of the first destinations which I visited was the Saint Chapelle. And next to that is this, is this ancient prison where Marie Antoinette and various other prisoners during the French Revolution were actually located. And what I found extremely innovative about this one place was that the moment we entered, and this was completely free of charge because I have my EU residence permit, and since I was less than 25 years, the admission was free. As soon as we entered, we were handed with this tablet, and we were asked to just use it to scan any QR code around the place. And there were multiple QR codes located, and if you scan them, it used to recognize it and turn into this augmented reality where it converted this entire ancient place and showed the royal kitchen, for example, and what exactly they were eating. We could see the fires, we could hear the sounds which were coming, we could actually navigate through the entire place and, look at the various situations in the present real time. And I feel that that entire experience was completely different and far more memorable than anything which would have been if I was just walking by and just reading the general information which was being put up on board, as it is in most other monuments and places of historic interest. So this place where technology combines with, moments of the past, where, the future and the past collide, it's truly transformational. It's truly, spectacular. It leaves you with far more memories and far more recollection than you would possibly ever have before.
I think it's a fascinating space. And when you consider the advancements, I know Michael mentioned this earlier, but the advancements in technology, I think specifically around AI, machine learning, the unimaginable is becoming now imaginable and doable, really, I think. And I'd like to hear Michael's comments on that as well.
Well, the AI and machine learning, and I've been using ChatGPT for a year or two now, and I'm fascinated with it. And one application it may be useful for is if we did this QR code, but we don't have enough information on the person. Maybe they're famous, like Agatha Christie, that you'll tell us about. I think she's buried near you. Is that right?
She's buried in my village. Yeah.
In your village, right? So imagine that a machine learning system could actually fill in the information for us right away. There's so many interesting things we could probably even, this may be possible, but it may be possible to show an animated, take a photo and animate it and show what the person looked like when they were talking, just like you're looking at us now. Imagine that. Imagine being able to have a conversation with someone who's gone. That's coming. It's going to have to come because AI machine learning is seeming to be more and more like a human experience. I think also AI and machine learning bring a lot of creative art to the stage that's never been here before. I am an artist, so it also kind of freaks me out that some of these tools are better than me. I work painlessly to develop my skills. And I have friends that are just typing in a prompt and getting this beautiful looking thing. And geez, I feel maybe I should turn in my brush.
I think, well, just going back to that AI piece, a lot of people were, I think, scared or scaremongered in that respect to this is going to do away with so many jobs. But it's always going to need direction. I think it's always going to need a level of human intervention and creativity for it to work, because it needs that human prompt. It needs that initial injection of thought process. And I think that's where we as humans kind of lead into AI and to create sort of better usage. But yeah, I agree with you. The future is coming quickly, and there's lots we can do in this space for sure.
And ChatGPT it has been there since I think October or November. For the public use as such, most people have gotten access to it since probably 5 months ago. And it has completely, changed the way in which people use it and how exactly they're responding to it. In fact, as a current master's student, I already have courses where they've all automatically updated the rules, stating that, here's a specific document regarding ChatGPT usage, and that you're free to use it, but you have to cite its specific usage as such. So it's nice to see organizations and people actually adapting so quickly to its introduction rather than being extremely, against its very existence or its very implementation as such. So
I'd like to mention, hold on, I'd like to mention one interesting use case of ChatGPT that I found useful, and it's around oral history. Imagine someone that has stories to tell can actually go and just record their voice. And we already know that there's systems that can recognize voice and turn it into text, but to clean it up along the way is what I'm talking about. Have someone actually record an oral history about a person, have it go through all these systems and spit out really succinct, beautifully written messages about a person's life. So you could use ChatGPT as a copywriter, if you will. However, I want to say something I've been noticing. I think ChatGPT is getting more stupid by the day. And I believe it or not, because it's learning by what people put in there. And the more people that put in bogus stuff or try to play and do dirty tricks on it, it's nothing but a prediction engine. And it does nothing more than try to predict the most probability of the next word. It has absolutely no idea what it's saying. It just fools you. So it doesn't really have intelligence, but it freaks you out. It makes you feel like we've never been able to talk to computers this way. I use it to put, someone gave me 100 words and they wanted me to put them in alphabetical order. I went straight to ChatGPT and I said, put them in alphabetical order. And it didn't get it right. About a third of the way down, it started messing up, putting Z's where they should have not been. So you got to use it carefully. I think that ChatGPT is like a whiz kid 7-year-old, you know, really good, really smart. It has ChatGPT, but, you know, makes mistakes and is in a rush. So you got to use it carefully.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think also it shows you that within the next, year, I would imagine, and the advancements of all the other AI engines and machine learning that is going on around it, it will only advance and start sort of simplifying those early teething problems. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think you approach with caution and you potentially rewrite or edit some of the script that it churns out. I think it's used with caution. Yeah, I would agree.
Another use case I've used it for is sometimes I'd like to post something and I have a story to tell because I'm always telling stories. And then it says, you are 80 characters too long. So I go into ChatGPT and I say, shorten this by 80 characters. I don't know how the heck it does it, but it does it. And it keeps all the words I want. Maybe it gets rid of redundant words, but it does. That's a very interesting use case too. So it's like a calculator for speech, if you think, or for communication. You can translate languages.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing is it has context. So whatever you give it, you could say, okay, now give it to me in Korean. Now make it Chinese, or make it funny, make it memorable, make it rhyme. These are all things you could say to it one after another, and it just takes the context it's been given and gives you the probable answer.
Yeah.
There is one question that I actually had regarding ChatGPT's usage, and probably this does also fall under the question, or it falls under a huge intersection of the various topics which we've been talking about: innovation, creativity, and also about its usage. So recently I had this course which was about, human technology interaction as such. And one point which was stated was about, one of the pitfalls of using any form of automation is that it leads to some form of de-skilling of the humans who are using it. And it starts all the way back from when, pilots were slowly, getting introduced to autopilots, and how they saw a slight dip in the general skill that the pilot demonstrated. And even right now in university, I can see quite a lot of people using ChatGPT for writing Python codes, creating their own websites, and even with respect to innovation and creativity, for probably using it to copyright specific information rather than actually doing the work the more conventional way as such. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what you believe. Do you believe this is a pitfall? Do you believe this is an opportunity? And how exactly do we respond to such changes and such?
Well, I have some insight on that I'd like to share. It's a bit of a turn from talking about gravestones, but I'm very much interested in using computers for design, specifically for mechanical design. And one such technology I'm really fascinated with, and I could even give you a demo of it for the users if you'd like, is called generative and topology optimization. This is a case where instead of going to a computer and drawing squares and shapes and circles and making an engineering part, you tell the computer what the problem is. I have a bracket. It needs to hold 100 pounds. It's going to twist by this amount. You go figure it out. You go figure out it must need to be this light. And the computer goes to work and it starts creating this really eerie looking geometry that looks like a tree, looks actually like Mother Nature. And it's brilliant because it allows people to not have to do that very difficult job of coming up with a shape that they can't imagine. And letting the computers do this interesting work is only going to open up more solutions, more opportunities. We need to teach people how to use this technology. If you want, I can give you a little quick demonstration. I can share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me do that. Host has disabled screen sharing.
I should just, give me 1 second.
The power of live discussions and interviews.
Yeah, this is either going to go really good or really bad, but it is live, that's for sure. We aren't editing this. So I'm going to add my screen. Okay, and I'll move you guys out of the way. All right, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, share. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
See it moving around? Okay. I want you to imagine that my problem is, and this is a real problem, I want to mount this plate on the ceiling, and I've got a pin that I need to hold something with, and I want, this is going to be pulling 100 pounds, and it's got this distance between it, and it's made out of plastic. And I have no idea, I need to make it really light, and I have no idea what I should do. Now, what is interesting about this is a human can come up with simple things like planes, arcs, what we call primitive geometry. But I'm going to tell the computer to do it for me. I'm going to go into this program. This is called Pro Engineer. It's a CAD system I'm really good at. And I'm going to click Generative Design. And what you see here, all these arrows, are areas that I've told the software to pay attention to. In other words, I have the pulling force on these little yellow arrows pointing down. These little yellow things at the top mean they're fixed. So I'm actually going to recreate this. I'm going to ask the computer to lighten it 40%. And it's going to go and figure out how to build some geometry that will do that job. So look, it starts creating this, and it's going to start whittling it down to another shape. And oh, by the way, you see that hole that was showing up there? That's because I also told it that there's a pipe going through the middle. I gave it a really difficult job to figure out. And look at what it's doing. It's iterating over a number of steps until it comes up with the geometry that exactly serves the purpose. It knows it needs to carry 100 pounds. It knows that it's made out of plastic. It knows that it's going to twist. I've given it all these conditions. And to answer your question, this is a primary example of how I'm using technology to do something that I couldn't normally do. I mean, this geometry that it's creating is very bizarre. I would never imagine. So I'm leveraging the computer and I'm letting it do its job. I still had to teach it. I still had to be the one to figure out what is the goal. The computer doesn't know what a goal is until you tell it. But if you can restrain and constrain those goals and define those things, you can use the software this way. And I actually have printed this just to show you. Let me stop sharing my screen. By the way, it's done, by the way. Now that took, how long did that took? Maybe 30 seconds? That would take me a week to figure out. And not only that, I get instant analysis results, okay? This is telling me where the areas of the geometry may be weak or maybe mostly stressed. And that did not take very long. And
so, Michael, can I ask then, that geometry, that maths working, is that utilizing AI within the program, or is that completely?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is using AI and machine learning to organize and come up with these suggestions. In fact, there's two actually technologies at play here. One is called topology optimization. Topology optimization is when you know the shape of something and you want the computer to lighten it up, make it lighter, do something to it, but you start with the shape. Generative design, it's a different technology. It's when you don't know the shape and you want the computer to come up with new shapes that you'd never thought of before. So this is a little bit of that at play here. If I turn off my my camera, sorry, my screen share, or how do I turn off the screen share here? I can't find my. I'm trying to show you. I have an example of what this looks like,
Mhm.
and I was able to 3D print that.
Amazing.
You still see me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that would be an interesting way to answer your question. Are computers taking over our jobs? You know what? Let me stop sharing here. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah,
Stop
sure.
sharing. Okay. Yeah. I'm using the computer to do something else that I could never do, and I'm pushing the limits. And this power is extremely light. So I know NASA is using this technology when they send parts to space. Every pound counts, right? So this is that type of technology. Someone needs to program the robots. Someone needs to do all the computer programming. Someone needs to, invent all this stuff. So to me, I don't think jobs are going to take away. I think jobs are going to get more interesting. New technologies will emerge, and that's exciting too. Additive manufacturing is a huge growing industry. As companies are saying, I'm laying off. Companies are looking desperately for more people in the additive manufacturing space. A lot of companies want to change their manufacturing processes so they're no longer doing things overseas. Companies are trying to do things like reshoring, which is bringing their technology and their manufacturing into their own country, servicing their own country needs, and keeping intellectual property at bay.
Oh, that's extremely good. That was a very comprehensive answer, which basically covered all the questions regarding, the uses of uh, such forms of technology and their applications. And Darren, I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding this entire aspect of skills, the how exactly, the typical user as such is going to transform with the usage of such technology moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, Chadron. I think Michael, in some respects, has already touched on this, in that it will always need a level of human intervention. But I think there'll be new skill sets needed to be learned in order to interact with those advancements. So I think new digital skill sets for emerging verticals, because I think in each different vertical are individual differing needs. I'll give you a classic example. My 15-year-old son is my go-to IT expert for anything that's currently mobile, and that's because he can do it in seconds. Whereas for me, it might take me 45 minutes to a minute and a half. Whereas with him, it's sort of second nature, and I think that's traditional now. They've learnt and grown with technology around them. So I think the younger generation that are now coming through are the sort of people that will be reskilled with these digital skill sets. And I think there'll be really good value-added digital skill sets too. Again, I think Michael will be best placed to sort of answer that in a bit more detail.
Well, I just to jump on what you said, I was that person for my dad. He'd always call me every time the power went out to turn the VCR so it wasn't flashing 12 o'clock all the time, or to change the battery on the smoke alarm or whatever it was. So I was doing that. But something you touched on is very interesting, and it's adaptability and reskilling people. Yeah, you're right. Kids adapt to stuff extremely fast. They learn fast. I'm sure your son is like, come on, Dad, don't you know this stuff? Get with the program. However, I think that these young kids are still missing something. And that's where I really think mentorship is needed. I happen to know this. I read an article about a woman who's charging $400 an hour to teach these young people how to talk on the phone, because they don't have those social skills like we have now. They don't have the ability to carry on a meaningful conversation, look in your eyes, make an impact on. I mean, if you can sell yourself, that's really important, especially if you're a young entrepreneur. So it's kind of a strange paradigm, isn't it? That you have all these bright people, but they're either shy or they don't know how to communicate with each other, and they're lacking. They have almost more digital skills than they have in human skills, if you will.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one, isn't it? Because they've almost come up with their own way of communicating, a sort of shortened, receive pronunciation even via text. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, like reading OMG or the upside down curly face. See, these kids, and uh, I don't mean to say kids, but you know, I'm now seeing what my dad experienced because he looked at me this way. When I was a kid, I got caught. I had a job when I was young, and I bought myself the first ever calculator watch. This was like in the 80s, and I was caught in math grade using my little calculator to do my work. I didn't see any problem with it. And I got sent to the principal's office, and first I said, "Oh, what's that?" And then I got kicked out or whatever. But wait a minute, what's wrong with using calculators? Why are we taking those tools away? I mean, I'm much more inclined to give a calculator. If it exists, you're going to go into the workplace and you're going to find a calculator there. So I'm wondering about technologies. And I also think, what about in school, if we could make it more interesting? I only know one language. How about you, Darren? Do you know another language? I only know English.
Ich kann es auch Deutsch sprechen. Ich habe da gewohnt für.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Ja.
Well, I know like 25 different computer programming languages.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing if a kid that didn't really want to learn Spanish or English or something like that, or not English, or even another language, could actually opt out and take a computer language? Maybe that could be something. I saw an article once on LinkedIn. Someone's actually thinking, should we abolish homework? Is homework really doing our kids any service? And my reaction to it was, well, you know, homework does take away family time. And imagine if you had a job where that when you went home, you had to keep working until dinner time.
Do you know, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because again, the whole area of the curriculum, I think in most countries these days, is archaic. I mean, it's Victorian, really, isn't it? We teach in the same way that we've always taught. And yet in today's society, and in some respects, it's probably the one area that I agree with Elon Musk. And that's, you know, where kids have a natural tendency or a leniency to a certain specific skill set or subject, then really we should hone in on those skill sets and subjects and teach them in that realm. You know, and I think it will be a lot more specific then to those children that are good at this or that or the other, whatever those other things may be. Yeah.
Someone told me this, and I always like to think about it. You know, find something it is that you love to do.
Yeah.
Get really good at it. Focus on it, and eventually, someone will pay you top dollar to pay you to do what you love.
Yeah.
So I think a kid, you know, when they immediately realize that they're controlling their own domain with their idea, and they get encouragement. I mean, 3D printing is everywhere. Automation is everywhere. Robots are everywhere. Everyone's building robots. It's a very cool time to be alive. And I don't know, sometimes I went to a vocational school, a trade school. My parents couldn't afford college. So I learned how to mentor. I got mentored by an older person. I learned how to run dangerous equipment without hurting myself. And it was very good for me. I just didn't go to college. So I always felt bad about that for so long, but it's actually really helped me. I know how things are made from the inside out because I had to do it. And when I rose up through the ranks, I found out that actually my unique upbringing and style of learning has actually done me pretty well, serviced me pretty well. And I still use a calculator. And
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, providing you show the working out.
Okay. Yes, you're the one with the PhD. So
they that's what they tell us is, you know, providing you can show the working out. And I think calculators are now available in my son's school. You know, they're allowed to take them in, and I think similarly with homework. We were talking earlier, Chandran, that with, you know, things like ChatGPT, as long as you add the source, or whether it's research or development, or whether it's actually utilization of a given tool, again, I think that's a sensible approach.
You know, I put out a couple of posts that were written by ChatGPT, and someone called me out on it, and so I was like, yeah, I did use it, and it's very easy to tell. Actually, no one writes that way almost. It's too perfect. So there's actually a program that can detect that something's written by ChatGPT through its probability matching. So it's only going to get interesting and more either worse or better. But to me, My dad would love ChatGPT. I'm sure your mom and your dad would love ChatGPT, Darren. Imagine if they could just talk to the VCR, change the time to 7:30.
Yeah.
What if you could talk to a smoke alarm that's beeping? Hey, shut off. I'm cooking.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the weird interfaces, the multi-purpose button that you have to press 3 times to get a special function. All that could go away with language functions.
Yeah. Connected lives. Absolutely. I mean, I see all the innovations in that respect that you come up with, Michael. I think they're fantastic. And I think, the future is here, as we said earlier. Chandran, I'd like to go back to robotics, if I may. And one of the areas I think that will make real traction, we're slightly early now, but the sort of mundane tasks, and clearly they're already operational in the areas of manufacturing and warehousing and logistics, but some of the areas of care, actually, because my background is health and social care, so I think certain aspects of the care pathway could be better managed robotically, and I think with elements of human interaction as well.
Give us an example of that. It sounds too Black Mirror-ish. A robot taking care of my mother I'd have to get over that first, but maybe give me an example. Actually,
I'll give you an example in the sense that there's a trolley that goes round in a care home now, walked around by an individual person with what they call, it's a MAR chart, but also all the meds that need to be taken by the individuals that may be in that care setting. Whereas that could be replaceable with a robot. Will naturally follow the pathway of going up and down floors and going to the right area on a schedule and that sort of thing. So I think that those areas, perhaps another robot that takes round cups of tea for people, or drinks or hydration, or there's lots of real life applications, I think, for robotics in the care space and health as well.
Especially when you mention vision systems that go with these things. So a lot of things. My mother died of dementia, but in the end, we had to figure out what she was feeling based on her expressions. But if we had some kind of a system that was monitoring these things, medicine delivery is actually really interesting too. Okay, that's a very interesting approach.
Yeah. I'm familiar with one that actually monitors face recognition now, where people living with dementia, if they can't express through cognitive decline or whatever that might be, it recognizes through muscular features whether they're in pain, and that's here already. We can do that in app, actually. So there are lots of advancements taking place.
I think that's actually an extremely fascinating question as such regarding how robotics can be used for care. And I'll tell you the biggest impediment which exists to that. And I think one of the best ways in which we can explain that would probably be using this famous quote, which I heard a while back, which says that, computers can easily beat even the best players in the game of chess. But even a 5-year-old can move the chess piece on a physical board much better than most of the even the most complex robots as such. So this form of tactile movements and these tactile tasks which we have, like even ask a robot to fold a napkin, for example, it becomes extremely difficult because these intricate movements, the ones which require a level of finesse and a level of accuracy, it's still difficult for robotics to emulate. And I recently, yes,
I was going to say, it's that element of mechanical process, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Because the thing is, we take our functionality for granted quite often, because the very aspect of, for example, I'm holding something right now, and my body and everything which I'm doing is able to account for me holding the specific amount of weight. And say, for example, if the weight were to increase, I immediately know how much I should proportionally increase the amount of effort to keep it in its place, or decrease it and move it from place to place. But for robotics as such, it becomes extremely complicated. So one topic which I was actually discussing in terms of this idea of care as such with one of my professors at university was, you know what, we're still quite a while away from robots properly taking care of humans. But what we can do, or what would be a slightly more achievable yet uh, extremely transformative goal, would be transfer of physical skill. Like right now, if we think about this meeting, we are able to actually transfer our mental resources and faculties across the internet, and it's been revolutionary. But now imagine we can transfer physical skills the same way. Like, say, for example, Darren, you can fold the best origami crane, for example, and you want to do it for me over here. And if you had access to control arms and I just had to give you a piece of paper, imagine how amazing that would be. And coming back to elder care as such, there are countries where you have, a remarkable, uh, uh, are extremely populated as such. So imagine if you were able to actually outsource skills from one of these extremely populated countries, or where the skill exists, to some other place where that skill is absent. Then that would be truly revolutionary, because you're able to move people without actually physically moving them. And that is truly transformative, because if we can achieve it, we could have someone from some corner of the world able to safely and within certain regulations move a robot, say somewhere halfway across the world, and take care of someone without any of the nitty gritties of being extremely precise with the technology. So imagine such technology; it would be truly transformative.
I
I've been
think it's
working on something like that, actually. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, Michael.
So this is a something I've been designing. I'm calling it a kitchen robot, but it's unlike any robot of today. So I've been programming robots and automation for a long time. And in the very early days, and still pretty much today, you feed it motion commands and it does it just follows those orders and doesn't know what it's doing, doesn't know what it's holding, has no force feedback, doesn't know how to skip over something. So this is a very different type of robot. This is a trainable robot. And instead of training with computer code, it's no coding. You literally press a button and you put the robot arm in neutral gear, if you will, and you just move it around. And it's recording what's happening as you're moving it. And then you can hit a button and play it back. So you could put a knife in its hand, or a mixer in its hand, or even teach it to cook or roll out pizza. I mean, you mount two of these in your kitchen. The idea here is that people could actually train these robots and then upload those trainable motion controls, motion envelopes with others. And this is an interesting idea that I've been dabbling with for a while. You can read about it here, but it's a new way to program robots, because we're going to bring robots into more places. We need a whole new way to program them. We can't be giving them dumb commands that go one way. It's going to have to include vision systems, tactile feedback, force feedback control, a lock control, motion control. And this design here is actually something that you can 3D print yourself. This is something I'm hoping to launch to the public as an open source project. And I want to see what happens when people get a hold of this technology. This is very easy to own. I think it would cost about $100 to actually 3D print with the parts that you get yourself. And it would be an open source solution. And again, if you had two of them, you could get it to do a myriad of things.
Can I ask, I mean, with my limited knowledge in relation to robotics, and with iterative AI and a sort of constant improvement feedback loop, could it teach itself to constantly improve?
Yes, it can. In fact, my favorite example of this, and where some of this idea came from, is I play piano, and I have a musical sequencer. It's called a musical sequencer, and I have a digital MIDI piano. That means instead of it being a real piano, it's just a switch every time I'm hitting the switch. And all those, as I'm playing, all those switches, and not only just the switches, but how fast I hit a button, if I vibrated my key, if I've got the sustain on, all that is being fed into a computer program and being recorded real. Now, I'll tell you, I don't play perfect, right? But there's a button called Make Perfect. It's actually called Quantize. And I don't know how it does it, but it takes everything and the timing and makes it exactly perfect, fixing all my mistakes, fixing and making it better, in fact. Now they've actually taken this technology a little further because it sounds weird when it's perfect. Now they call it humanize. So they make it perfect and then they humanize it, adding little small timing errors. Because believe it or not, our brains are very easy susceptible to catching those nuances of live recorded music. But that's another way to think about a way to use the robot is, again, just get me in the range of motion I need to do my job, and then give the power of a system that lets you edit it and tweak it and refine it, make it simple and easy to do. Then I think we have robots that can practically be everywhere. It's too expensive to own a robot. Robots are also very big, heavy industrial machines. I built them. They're very, very strong and rugged and heavy. They don't need to be. Our arms are very light and flimsy. How is that all possible? And so it's just taking a whole different approach to robots. And it's an area actually called soft robotics. It's using soft, pliable metamaterials to do the job, because that's what Mother Nature does. I mean, if you look at a bone is not solid. It's sparse, and it has different density all throughout it. And even growing through it is blood vessels or blood to do everything from registering and helping our body stay clean. So Mother Nature is amazing in that way, but I don't know. I just think that robots need to go through its own revolution.
And I think they will. I think that finesse that you mentioned earlier, Chandran, of the human emotion and the human connection, that needs to be sort of taken in measurably within AI and robotics. And I think at some point we will see a really good advancement in that space. Yeah,
and I feel, Michael, with respect to the robot which you just showed, I feel that that's actually extremely crucial, because quite a lot of people.
Strangely, what? Hold on.
The robot which you showed, the idea of actually owning such a robot in every household, I think that idea is extremely crucial, because a lot of people who are in the field of technology know about its existence and how exactly it is used. But to the general public as such, if they have access and if they are interacting with such forms of robots, then it pushes that, dependency or urgency to actually incorporate such technology into our day-to-day lives. And I feel that apart from, the general vacuum cleaning robots, which exist now quite commonly in many households, I feel that form of penetration into general households has still not occurred. And having such forms of innovations and having such forms of creations which could be passed down to even the common public without any coding, without any complicated user interface, could actually be a huge game changer in ensuring that.
It would be. I know the CEO of iRobot. I talked to her once. Actually, it was another person, but they're very high up in the top of the chain of iRobot. And she told me this very interesting story. She goes, I get frustrated all the time. People call our company asking us which cleaning product they should use. Don't they understand that we're a robot company? We have the rights to drive a robot all around your house. And they have sort of failed, in my opinion, to embrace or get to this next stage. Maybe that's why Amazon bought them. I don't know. But they kind of stuck in this vacuum cleaner world. I don't know. I think I would love to see them work on a project like this. But 3D printing is an example of where this happened. Now, when 3D printing became pervasive, actually, when the term 3D printing kind of got coined after the patents dried up, everybody was getting a 3D printer. Doctors were getting 3D printers. And what did they start doing? They started playing with it. And now they're inventing medical procedures. Now they're inventing medical practices. Now there's products out there that can print bone materials and print hearts and organs that then can be used as practice. Because right now they're using pigs and cadavers.
Regenerative tissue, yeah.
Exactly. In fact, that's another thing. You can actually grow and graft bone and tissue on 3D printed parts as well. And in fact, this year, I think, is the first year that the government in America is going to allow hospitals to get reimbursed for 3D printing services. So imagine you go to the doctor and he says, gee, I really want to do this surgery on you, but I'd like to really practice it first. And you say, okay, that sounds good. Oh, but it's going to cost you $100,000. And you say, can my insurance pay for that? And right now he says no. But in the future, I believe, and it's coming, they'll say, of course. And wouldn't you want someone to practice on you? In fact, when you get a cadaver or a pig, I mean, you're not even, the anatomy is not even right. So this ability to print and actually scan a patient and do the segmentation that's needed to turn that into 3D data and then print it and get the same color, the same pliable, the same shore value, the same tissue feeling. It's already being used now, actually, all across the world. Doctors are now buying this technology and they're using it to practice and to build new applications that are being used in the surgical office, the surgical room.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean, the idea of I love that term which you used, Michael, playing around. As you mentioned, when doctors had access to 3D printers, they were able to play around with such form of technology. And somewhere along, adulthood, I guess, for most people, the term playing around is somewhere lost in the void. And it's crucial that, we get back in touch with it. Maybe, yeah, there's some collateral, maybe there's
It's so
some
true.
thing, but the idea of, just being creative, being innovative, just trying something out.
I've had the good fortune of meeting many inventors and helping them. And I can tell you that every single time, it's when someone's playing around, do they get that final moment of ingenuity, that genius moment. And it's when they're messing around. And why do we think that's wrong to play around? You did it as a kid. And so I do think people need to have more liberties to play around. And that's what's interesting about 3D printers, because when you own it, when it's so damn cheap that you can just own it and take it home, you don't feel so guilty about playing around. And I'll tell you, I know doctors who were in that play around stage and he said, hell, I'm going to bring this to the office next. And they show all the other people and they're like, oh, and that's what's been happening. And not only doctors, but inventors. I met a young person at a coffee shop years ago that said he made his own 3D printers. He was a young guy. I actually didn't almost believe him. So I became pals with him and he invited me over his house and he had built 5 of his own printers, never went to college. He just has this knack and this ability to take all this stuff and put it together using YouTube, using parts that he bought on Amazon. And each one he showed me was a little bit of a different variation of the next. And then he showed me this part. He holds this part up in front of me. Not this one, but something like it. I said, wait a minute, you made that? He said, yeah. And I'm looking at it as a machinist, because I used to be a machinist, and thinking, this is going to take a week for me to make. Okay, he must have spent some time on it. So I asked him, how much time did you spend on this, Gary? He says, 10 minutes. I was flabbergasted. I said, what? 10 minutes? Oh, and that's when the light bulb went off for me. And I've been using 3D printing already, but not at this level. Not that a kid was doing it. Not that he didn't even have the foggiest idea how a part like that would be made in traditional manufacturing. He just embraced it and got right into it. And so some of my best advice to people that want to get into additive manufacturing and 3D printing, go out and buy one. You know what? Go out and buy one. They're $300 now. You can get them all over the place. People will sell them used. You can go to Home Depot and buy one. They're all over the place. In fact, you can get access to one. You can go to a maker shop and get access to one, or you can find someone like me who can help you take your ideas forward. But immersing yourself and playing around is the single most important thing to find that innovation that you haven't discovered. In fact, I challenge you to tell me one invention other than a jingle that's been written as a music. Tell me one invention that was invented on purpose. All inventions are accidents. I dare you to come up with one. Maybe your listeners will tell us. But go back through it. I mean, even Alexander Graham Bell spilled some acid all over his pant leg and actually caused some miracle to happen where his voice transmitted over the electrical lines. That was a mistake. Or the guy that found the cure for Darren, you have to help me here. A scientist who came up with a cure for penicillin. He was a messy person. He was going away on a trip and he left one of his petri dishes, his tests And he came back, he almost threw it away, but he noticed looking at it, wait a minute, all this bacteria that was supposed to grow around it moved away from it. And that became the biggest single, probably most innovative invention that ever in the history of the world probably came.
It's true.
And he gave it to everybody. He did not patent it. He gave it to everybody. And so that's another thing I'd like to bring up, is that we need to unleash inventors that are going to do brave things. Don't think about becoming a billionaire and flying into space. Come on. Yeah. Do something good for the world.
I'm in agreement there, Michael. I mean, I'm very, very, very passionate about doing something for social good. The people that are living in, ours is about capturing digital legacy, right? That's what we do. But the people that can't for themselves, whether they're living with cognitive decline, i.e. they're living with dementia, living well with dementia even possibly, but people living with an incurable disease or end of life or in receipt of palliative care, we are gifting our moments to those as a subset. Not only is it important for social value, but for social impact as well for our community. It's really, really important that we do that. It's not, you're absolutely right. It's not about getting rich. It's about doing something that's positive for societal impact and societal good as well, of course. So, hats off to you there, Michael.
And take chances on people. You know, that guy invented this, he's a helicopter pilot, this invention I made for this guy that I told you earlier about. He's going to fly me to his state of Ohio, and he's going to take me on helicopter rides all day long, testing his invention.
Wow.
And I was telling my daughters about this, my family, and they said, geez, Dad, that's priceless. And I said, that's right. So I'm motivated by those miracles too. I mean, money gets the job done to pay for your life, but it's really those experiences that you get to hold that are near and dear. And just be open and kind and authentic and be yourself, and you can find your tribe, and you'll find people like Darren and I. We're actually doing it. I think we actually sometimes say, you and I, right, that our parents are actually working on this up there.
Oh, they're probably in cahoots at the bar. My dad was ex-army, Royal Engineers. He died some years ago. In fact, the day that Newsweek posted the article about Michael's dad it just coincided with my dad's birthday. He would have been 87 on that day. So for sure they're up there talking.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire idea, I feel one extremely key takeaway, about the entire idea of not just focusing on money, but actually trying to think of the various other benefits which exist, Like I remember this recent study about how money can buy happiness, and it said that there were maybe 3 ways in which money buys happiness. The first is by buying experiences. The second is by buying time for yourself, if possible. And the third is by giving it away, or actually, contributing by providing value to each other. And I feel we've actually discussed throughout the length of this podcast till so far about how, we can use inventions and creations of different sorts to actually achieve each of these different objectives, whether it is to actually help people live better lives, give them a better experience, or probably just improve the way in which they function as such. And Darren, I'd also love to hear your views from the software side of things as well, because we've spoken a lot about the hardware side of additive manufacturing, 3D printing as such. So what are your views on the software side of applications, websites, and anything, and how people create in that domain and what exactly they're able to get?
It's a really good question, actually, Chandran. I think one of the things which you mentioned really outside of the podcast was 2 things: immersive and augmented. And I think if we look at both of those areas, augmented reality combined with immersive technology, combined with AI, combined with machine learning, combined with the application of software development, all those things, intertwined, who knows what's going to happen next? I think it's going to be really, really interesting. We're ahead of that curve, I think, with Michael on board, with the things that we're doing already. One of the things actually we're doing right now is, and I mentioned again earlier, but utilizing timelines for business, so that, or organizations, I guess, for asset management. And I think if they can embed that with AI, machine learning, augmented reality, then all the better for the visitor economy. We're going to retain, and people are going to have a lot more rich, deeper experience. There's a lot more advancements to come, certainly in relation to software development as well.
I can respond to that too. I am a software developer. I still write code. I'm pretty good at it. I wrote a book, and I used to lead one of the world's largest technical community meetings around this particular technology for programming. I do think programming is going to change. I want to tell you this little story about when I would hire developers. I was a bit old-fashioned, and their job was to come in and meet me and my staff and so forth, answer questions. But then I'd put them in a room, and I'd say, "Okay, write me this." I give them an example of a program I want them to write, and this works really. And I even let them use Google. But this one fellow couldn't do the job. He actually gave up. I felt bad for him. I really wanted him. Come on, I'll give you more time. And no. And I finally got friendly with them and broke through. And I came to understand that he uses a program to help him write programs. And unless he's got that program, he can't write the program. So my exercise started with a blank sheet of paper, almost like a blank screen. You start writing the code, you type everything. He was so used to another system where he knew all these commands and buttons to press, it was all special, and he only knew that way. And so I think it's a bit of a problem when we have so much disconnect between how things work. But you also touched on something else I'd like to talk about, which is asset management and knowledge management. So right now in our industry, additive manufacturing and machining and manufacturing, there's a lot of older people who are retiring, and they're all saying the same thing. Good God, when I'm out of here, no one's going to know anything how it all works. We better start teaching these people. And nobody's been thinking about this too much. And I really think it needs to happen, because the young generation have all the will and want and need and desire and the skills and the technology. What they don't have is experience. And I tell you, these old people, old timers, I call them, I'm almost one, they're willing to give information, but they don't have a technology to do it. And what you just mentioned, Darren, is actually something we should maybe get working on too. Timelines for business. Imagine that, where you can offload your knowledge in a meaningful way, even just make it so simple. I mean, imagine if at the end of the day, I told a 15-minute story and that got put into a database and got extracted and put into knowledge, and that became searchable and findable later. I know one such company that let their old timers go, sorry for the term, but they said, but we'll pay you 5 hours a month to answer calls when someone's got a question. And that's working for them. And they get the benefit of feeling special and making a little bit of money. But it's a very interesting problem we have, where the younger generation need to be guided by mentors. We need more mentors.
I would agree completely. I think one thing that we've lost through COVID, although it's made everybody implicitly aware of their own mortality, is we've lost that element of connectivity. Where younger members would once go into a company, and they're now on this hybrid version of working from home, we've lost that element of connectivity and that mentorship that we used to get through experience and innovation, and that just doesn't happen anymore. It's a real shame. So yeah, I would agree, Michael. I think there's something in that to start that knowledge transfer process, and maybe get a deeper insight in that realm. I would agree. Yeah.
When I was leading people, I really feel what they needed was someone to be their biggest hero, their biggest champion, the biggest enthusiastic person for the team. I try to get to a point where all the people that work with me have their own ideas. They think for themselves, and if they're stuck, I'm there to help them. And I try not to be the smartest person in the room. I'll actually ask a lot of dumb questions to see what people say. And I'll admit that. I don't think people need to know everything. Let people do their job, right?
I'm generally not the smartest person in the room.
Well, I don't think anybody's really smart anymore. We just know all these tools and technologies. Well, People are smart, of course, but I think the tools are becoming possible for people to leverage and do amazing, innovative things for the planet. Another thing I'm passionate about, so this giving back. Wouldn't it be great, Darren, if you and I were able to get more people interested in working on something good for the planet, working on something good for humanity? Go out there and work on your startup, but take a side of your company and put it away for good. Put it away to something meaningful and valuable. People may believe you're actually really going to do it, because I don't know about you, but a lot of companies aren't trusting corporations these days. And so in order to maybe trust a corporation, you need to be able to look under a lens and see, well, how are you really contributing to society? So if I did that with you, Darren, you have a great answer for that, like this giving back portion that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think social impact is absolutely the way to go. I think if we can all do something for societal good, it's the way forward. I really do. I mean, I really passionately believe in that. If we all did it, what a world we live in. Yeah.
Well, someone has to step up, and I feel like that's what we're doing. And I want to thank Chandra for putting this together. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. Is this good enough for a podcast, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I have one final thought regarding this entire conversation as such, and that is the topic which concerns, how Michael had mentioned about how that this entire legacy, and even the conversation which Dad and I were having, this entire idea that once a person has passed, their knowledge, their experience, and their sense of what made them who they were outside the typical, flesh and blood as such, is lost. And if we could preserve that, the potential could be remarkable. There was this book which I read a while back which said, you know what, there might be someone who can be considered the smartest person in the world, but regardless of how smart they are, if you were to just put together a group of people with different experiences, different outlooks, different settings, they would any day, under any situation, be able to defeat, or in any setting, this smartest person. It can be artificial intelligence, can be any entity such. And if we were able to actually pass on this form of experience, this knowledge, this this vast set of various moments that constitute our own life, then think of how truly beneficial it would be moving forward as time compounds for future generations, because they have a question, they want the best form of advice in that particular setting. There would be a moment in the past where something remarkably similar happened, and they could actually derive maybe from the regrets or maybe from the right actions and make the best out of it. And I feel that has truly great applications. And I feel that this conversation which we've had, this idea of legacy as such, ties together everything we've discussed in this podcast, whether it's artificial intelligence, creation, innovation, passing down of knowledge, and everything as such. And yeah, I guess before we can wrap up this podcast, I'd love to hear your views on this idea as well.
I'll chip in there if you don't mind, Michael. I'd love to leave you to have the final word. And that is that the one thing that technology can't do, the one thing that AI, machine learning, not yet anyway, will not give us is emotional intelligence. That human aspect of what we do and why we do it. And I think that's why there's always a need for human interaction.
I couldn't agree more. And there's a reason they call it artificial intelligence, because it's artificial. It's like artificial sweetener. It's not real. It just gives you the feeling that it is. And it's transformative. I agree. I usually like to end on things this way. Find something you love, go out and do it, get really good at it. Praise yourself, take care of yourself, go out and do it. You will find your tribe. And you will find that one step at a time, a little step at a time, you will find other people like I have with Darren, and find what we're doing, I think is amazing. And the fact that you are talking to us now, my dad would call this a time machine. The fact that we're able to see each other, talk to each other, wherever we are in the world, this is fabulous. There's a lot of bad happening in the world, but there are truly good things. And I want to hear more of those types of good things. So I hope that you continue to do your podcast and bring on other like-minded people. Maybe we can come back and show off something new and neat that we're doing. Darren and I have some amazing new things that we are planning to do, and it's very, very exciting.
Thank you so much, Michael and Darren. So when I just got on this call, I did not expect to, go down so many topics and learn and just have such a strong discussion about fields I did not even think of. Like before Darren joined the call, I hadn't even reflected or thought about this entire field. And I'm sure that everyone who's tuning in and listening to this podcast, it's going to be like this fairy lights of ideas and concepts which are going off in their head, thinking of new, probably paradigm shifting, thoughts which they never would have thought of before. And that's beautiful, because that's where this entire idea of creating something comes together.
Do you know, I think if we can inspire even just one person that sends that ripple, that's the whole idea, isn't it? I mean, it's just a constant. It's a constant. I think that's fantastic. It's been a really, really pleasurable conversation. I can't thank you enough, Chandran.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hey, if anything, Darren and I are pretty good at this. Actually, we should. You've given us a great thing to give us the chance to tell you the story, and we actually work really well together. You and I, Darren. You think like I do. I think like you do, and we share so much of the same things. So I can't wait to do this again another time. So I got to get back to work. I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.